What is up, baddies? We're back with another episode, and today we're gonna get raw, vulnerable, we're gonna expand, we're gonna open a can of worms. I don't wanna say that. I think we're just gonna talk and chit chat, and this is gonna be a vulnerable one, okay? Because today we're gonna talk about finding peace in loneliness. I feel like a lot of us have struggled or is still struggling to this day when it comes to being alone. I know I have. And for my background, why I struggled with this is most of my life I've lived with people. At home, I grew up in a family that were close knitted. I moved out of my home and then I moved in with friends and then I moved in with partners. And I never really gave myself the chance to be alone. And the hardest part about that is being around people all the time influences your decisions. It influences who you are, some good ways, some bad ways, and it doesn't help you discover who you truly are. So with that being said, I understand how it feels like to have this fear of being alone, have this fear of who's gonna take care of me. Like, how can I take care of myself if I'm so used to being around people all the time? So, we're gonna dive into my story, my journey, and how I was able to overcome this fear and how I'm going through the same thing right now. Crazy how that sounds. So, yeah, let's dive in. So, I was, again, so used to being around people all the time. And in terms of influencing my decisions and what I want to do with my life, my family would want me to take this career path. My friends would want me to have the same habits as them or have the same lifestyle as them. And it's not their fault because I didn't really know who I was. It's so easy for me to latch onto what other people thought of me or what their expectations are of me. So yeah, I became this girl who went to college for nursing that she didn't even love. I became this girl who would party and do drugs all the time because her friends did that and I thought that's what I'm supposed to do. And all these different things, right? I felt like I was a chameleon for so long, not knowing who I was because it was so much easier to box myself into other people's expectations of me than to go out of my own way and figure out who I was. So for so long, it was hard for me to step into who I was. I felt like I was living this identity or I was carrying this suit or what other people would say, wearing this mask. Like I was the girlfriend, I was the daughter, I was the coworker, I was this and that, but who I truly was, I didn't have an answer. And it wasn't until I made a decision to get out of my comfort zone and actually live on my own. I want to say, let's rewind back to how long has it been? I think it's been like 5 years, probably longer than that, when I decided to move out from living with my partner at that time. And I decided to move to Canada. It was crazy because it was probably one of the worst breakups I had to go through. And I decided, like, why not put myself out there? Why not experience the world in my own lens? So I decided to move to this small town in British Columbia called Kelowna. I love that town, by the way. It's a pivotal place, okay? Moved there on my own. Didn't really know much about living in Canada. I had mentors that lived there. I knew some people from a business event, but I can't say that I had friends at that time when I decided to move. So I want to say I moved alone. I moved not knowing where to start. I just felt like that was my opportunity to rebuild myself and to figure out who I was. Again, mind you, before I moved out of my home in California, I was so used to other people taking care of me. I lived with family that was like they lived like 20 minutes away from me. I lived with my partner who used to take care of me a lot, and I just didn't know how to do things on my own. I was afraid. I was scared. I didn't really know where to start. I think that's part of the process, right? Stepping into something that's uncomfortable. You get slapped with fear. You get, anxious about, okay, what's next? What do I do now? How do I handle this? How do I overcome this? And of course, I've experienced a lot of, waves of loneliness being there by myself. Again, no friends, no family. I don't really know where's like the best places to go in Kelowna. I stayed at this Airbnb for, I want to say 4 or 5 months. It was winter time too. Oh my God. I wasn't aware that British Columbia was not the place to go to during winter time. I remember when I moved there and they were like, why are you here during winter? Everything's closing early. It's snowing. No one really likes to hang out here during snow. I didn't know Kelowna was the summer capital of British Columbia. And your girl was there winter time where everyone was out. So you could imagine how isolating that feels. I remember this moment where I started grocery shopping for myself and I started making my own food and just dancing to music and just having my own routine. And every day got better. Every day it felt better. Of course, when I first moved there for the first, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks, your girl was breaking down, okay? I was crying. I was contemplating, like, should I move back? Like, I'm so scared. Did I make the wrong decision? But I just stuck with what my gut was telling me to do, which is to sit with myself and learn how to be uncomfortable. And I felt like that was a very eye-opening moment for me because I've learned how to take care of myself just by doing it, by starting. And I remember small things like taking myself out on a date. I remember the first time I sat at a restaurant. It was like Sunday morning and everyone was having brunch. I went to this restaurant. It was downtown, so it wasn't too far of a walk. I walked there. I got dressed up. I got all cute. I've never done that before, by the way. I'm so used to just going with people all the time whenever I go out. So I went to this restaurant, I sat down, and I remember the waitress was like, oh, I'll be right with you. So she set up, the utensils, the glass of waters, and she brought 2. And then I said, it's just me today. I was so scared to say that because in my head, I'm creating all of these narratives of, oh my God, she probably thinks I'm lonely or someone stood me up today. But I just replaced those thoughts with, no, you're just dating yourself. You're just taking yourself out on a date. It's not that big of a deal. You're literally just enjoying a meal by yourself, and that's okay. And I even challenged myself to not look at my phone because when you're uncomfortable, you just stare at your phone. Like in an elevator, it's uncomfortable in there, being in a box with strangers, you just bring your phone. That's how fast people get uncomfortable, right? So I told myself, like, no, put your phone down, eat your food, just be present, allow yourself to sit with this moment. What are the feelings that are coming up for you? I felt like it was more so just putting myself in the fire, that type of therapy for me to learn. So I did that. And again, over time, it got better. I feel like people tend to avoid that feeling or that discomfort of being alone because they associate being alone with loneliness. And I heard this somewhere where being alone doesn't just mean loneliness, it's also solitude. Solitude is basically finding peace or strength in being alone, being happy and fulfilled just by being alone. And I felt like every time I challenged myself to do something weird by being alone, I got comfortable. Right? When you put yourself in a position to be uncomfortable, that becomes comfortable over time. So some people might think that, being alone is scary and being alone isn't something that you're willing to risk, but I encourage you to do that because that's how you start discovering more of yourself. The more I took myself out on dates, the more I put myself in environments where people typically go in pairs or in groups, the more I've built my self-confidence as well, because it's like rebuilding that trust, right? When you weren't alone, when you were with people all the time, you don't trust yourself to take care of yourself. But when you put yourself in a position to force yourself to learn how to do that, to learn how to honor yourself, to serve yourself, to take care of yourself, you build that self-trust. So that's what I was able to do. I felt like that whole experience of living in a different place, different country by myself for 4 or 5 months helped me understand that I can also take care of me. I remember when I had my therapy session before actually making that commitment to stay in Kelowna, my therapist told me that we are so caught up in our own thoughts of what's next, what's gonna happen, that if I make this decision, that I'm gonna get this outcome. We're so worried about the outcome or what we're gonna get afterwards, everything that's external from ourselves. But we tend to forget that whatever outcome comes is going to be okay if you build that self-trust within yourself. She said that you're not certain of the outcome, but you can be certain with yourself. That's what I carried with me that whole entire time. I said, okay, I'm gonna get out of this relationship. I don't know what's gonna happen. Am I gonna go downhill from here, or am I gonna succeed? But it doesn't matter what's gonna happen as long as I continue to put myself in a position to be uncomfortable. I know I can take care of myself. With that space too, I've given myself the opportunity to silence everyone else's voice. The voices that I constantly hear about who I should be, what I should do, and started listening to my own. When you have moments of silence, when you have moments of just sitting with yourself, I know a lot of people struggle with this because we're always on the go. We're always like, what's the next thing? But taking that pause helps you reflect on who you truly are, what you want to become, what do you want to build, who do you want to surround yourself with. I think it's highly respectable to meet people that are certain with themselves, to meet people that are, you just know when someone's being a people pleaser, right? And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I feel like that comes from, trauma, emotional baggage, whatever it is that you've gone through, whatever background you grew up in. But when you come from being a people pleaser and then turn yourself or transform yourself into someone who is certain with themselves and very confident with their own decisions, that is just night and day difference when it comes to your confidence. You just carry yourself differently. Well, I just want to say that sit with yourself. Really, I want you to take time to process your own thoughts, your own feelings, what matters to you, because that's how you step into the person that you're supposed to become. I feel like if I didn't put myself in that position, being in a different place, being alone, sitting in solitude, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. Me building the confidence to do the hardest things helped me lean into the next hard things for myself. I was only able to unlock this next level in my life because I was willing to play the game. It's just like a video game, right? You can't get to the final point of that video game if you didn't develop the skills that you needed to win it, to accomplish it, to succeed. So now I want to tap into my current life. If you guys didn't know, I moved out from my other apartment. I decided to step away from my relationship because I found myself being lost again. I found myself relying on other people or attaching my value to other people, people pleasing, not nourishing myself and not serving myself. And overall, I basically lost myself in that relationship. And it's hard when you lose yourself because you also lose that self-trust, that self-belief. You also lose a part of you. I felt like I lost a part of myself, so I decided to step away from it. And now I move into this new apartment. I'm 4 days in this apartment. And so far, I am still dealing with the lonely nights and crying in bed and looking at how empty it feels. But at the same time, I am learning how to find myself again. I truly believe that every breakdown comes with a breakthrough. And I feel like I am still just going through the mud right now. I'm still understanding who I am, who I'm supposed to become, and what are the next steps for me. And it's the hardest thing because you're so used to living with someone for years and waking up to someone for years, having this whole routine down, and just one day realizing, oh wow, it's just me. It's hard. But every day I also put myself in a position to self-discover again, to find myself, to heal some parts of me that needs healing. And I'm rebuilding that self-trust. Right? It's another challenge, but I know I can overcome it. And this is what I say. It's so funny because I felt like I foreshadowed this whole thing with the video that I posted on Instagram where I talked about how there's no shame in starting over. I literally foreshadowed it because I said the reason why God puts you through the same challenges that you went through in the past is because now you're well equipped. Now you have more tools in your toolbox to overcome it. And I have done this. And I feel like right now, God is just putting me in a position to remind myself of my strength, to remind myself of my purpose on what I'm supposed to be doing. That's another thing too. Now that I am reconnected with my faith, this journey has been challenging, but at the same time, some way it's easier than last time because I have practiced putting all of my worries, all of my anxiety, all of my fear into God's hands and started trusting His plans for me. Overall, what I want you to learn from this episode is that it's gonna be scary jumping into something you've never done before. It's gonna be scary to be alone. I'm afraid of being alone. I will admit to that. But at the same time, listen to your gut. You have to also realign yourself with what's true to you. And if you feel like right now in your life feels very routine-ish, you feel like you're waking up the same way, going to bed the same way, but it doesn't feel good, there needs to change. I want to invite you to take that time to reflect on your life, to put yourself in isolation. You don't have to fly to Canada or go somewhere else for 4 or 5 months. I want to say I am grateful and privileged enough to be able to do that. But small things you can do right now is just take yourself out on a walk. Don't listen to music. Like, really sit with yourself. Put yourself in an uncomfortable position. Like, go to a coffee shop by yourself, dine in by yourself, go to the movies by yourself. Like, learn how to be comfortable with yourself. Because once you build that certainty from within, gosh, it's crazy how it's so much easier for you to stay in alignment with who you truly are and who you want to become, just because you know you. So that is how you find peace in loneliness. Sit with yourself and practice solitude. I basically just yapped on this podcast, but I hope this gave you some insight. I hope this gave you some value somehow in sitting with yourself. Because I know that I've built a life from solitude. I know I've built character from solitude. I know myself more and I am more confident because I chose to be uncomfortable and to sit with myself to figure out who I truly am. So I hope this was helpful and I can't wait to hear your guys' journey. Write it in the comments down below. I want to hear how your chapter is going sitting in solitude. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and I will see you guys in the next episode.